There we go. Okay, now people thank you. So let's look at code part right here. What can we do to, what are the commonalities that we have in this site? And really, the first thing that we should do is figure out the commonalities among the site and look for a pattern there. Let's go to, well, here's one. This top search bar, it's on every page. No matter what page you go to, it's there. So that's one thing you can break out as far as your, how to, you know, when we talk about reducing the code that you have in your driver class, it goes along with the search too. Create one class that handles all the search in the top bar. That's all it does. It handles one thing and one thing only. And then what about these right here? All these little filters right here, these filter options. If you look at them, they're all pretty much identical. You have a click open to see the item. You have a couple of checkboxes and a search box. And you don't have to write your code to say, well, if it only handles like this one here for the year, it's only going to handle 2015, 2016, 2017. You can handle it dynamically, saying that whatever value you pass in is the one I'm going to click on. Zoom in a little bit with this page too. So let's look at this year right here. And for this year section right here, I can't see it. Okay, right there. So as you're clicking on these sections, it'll highlight exactly what it's trying to do. It's kind of hard to see all the code that's being done. You can at least get a sense of feeling of where is that section that it's looking for. So if you click open this div right here, let's click on that div. It's going to be a link. And let's see if there's anything in here that we can look at that will give us indication of something that's common. And another way to do this is if you minimize this, you can see that each section have an identical starting point. They're all identical. They're nothing is different. So one thing that you can do is instead of writing one test that goes to this first item, one item that goes to the second item, remember you guys have written the automation to grab all the text on that first page, right? Using the find elements. That's the same thing what you're going to be doing here. So you're going to get a whole entire list of all the elements on this page that falls under this LI class. And once you find the stuff in the LI class, then you can go to the H4. And the H4 in this right here, underneath the anchor tag, there's a string right there. So once you identify this string, this is the only thing that's different. So as far as trying to find an element, all you're going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to go look for this LI, and then anything in the H4, and then anything in the anchor tag, those are going to be where my elements are going to be located. So I'm going to grab this web element of anchor, and I'm going to figure out what the text inside of it. And then at that point, all you need to do is throw your loop through all your web elements, and remember, use your getText class, your getText. We did that in chapter 3 as well, to print out all the text and to print out all the URLs. And then all you need to do is just try to match it. So if you look at this search results, let's go to my filter.
What challenge is this for?
This isn't part of the challenges.
Oh, okay.
This is more example onto how do you refactor your code to handle more of, so kind of like what we did with the driver class of reducing our code complexity for the driver. Let's take a look at the driver really quick before we dive into that one. So for this driver class, all I did was just build out the common code. And here's your common code if I was to build out this line by line. What I'm saying is that if the browser equals Firefox, I'm going to run these 2 lines of commands, and I'm passing Firefox as the value to build out a Firefox browser. For Internet Explorer, it's the same thing, Internet Explorer. For Edge, it's the Edge. And for Chrome, there's a little slight difference, but I can use the same pattern right here for Chrome. So if I want to do Chrome, let's say this piece of code did not exist, but this code, this snippet of code, if browser equals Firefox, Internet Explorer, Edge, or Chrome, it does the same thing, except all it's doing is that this one's going to trigger the build for a Firefox. This is going to be Internet Explorer. So now you see a pattern here. You're like, well, all I'm doing is just passing in a value. So why even bother with passing in using an if statement? So this can be reduced down to, all I'm going to do is say, I'm going to grab this line of code and forget the if statement. I'm going to just do browser, because in the function right here, I'm expecting browser to be passed in. So that's a string value that's being passed into this get driver.
The bar driver equals.
You did that just in a file
All I did was just create another file called driver.js.
that's in the same level as all the challenges, right?
I moved it into a common folder.
Oh, okay.
The reason why I moved to a common folder is these are more of the common stuff that everybody's going to use. And once I move into the common folder here, these imports here are going to be similar, but when you call into this function, it's going to be a little different. I'll show you that in a second. So once I saw this pattern here, it's like it's the same code. I need to reduce this line of code. I don't want to duplicate lines of code. They're not doing me any favor. So everything up here is empty. It's all useless code now. But what I need to do is I'm going to use a builder. So remember, with the WebDriver, you have to have a builder to build out your WebDriver, and then actually calls and returns. Once it starts up the web browser, that's what you return to whoever is calling it. And whoever calling it is a piece of code that is triggering off the test. That's the person who's going to call it. So if I have a test, if my challenge 6 is calling the driver class, it's got to pass in a certain set of parameters for it to kick off and launch.
Is it, okay, let me just ask a question. Isn't that what I have right here? Is a little builder thingy that I do? No.
Okay.
Or is that how I want it built?
That right there, so what, let me put the code up here. So you have const builder by
Until it's in print, curly braces, not prints.
key.
Those are curly braces. Instead of the, and then it equals Selenium WebDriver, just like the one above it. So it replaces your var WebDriver equal required.
Right. So what you did here,
Because I got tired of doing WebDriver dot.
wrong key. Phew. Didn't move anything. Okay. The difference between these 2 lines of code is essentially they've done the same thing.
Okay, so I can use what I still like.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can use that. The difference is, what if I want to separate out each of the imports that I have? Because inside this Selenium WebDriver, there's multiple other libraries or functions
Right.
underneath it, right? So what you did is introduce the by, and it's going to import from here. The builder is going to import from here as well. And the hill is going to be imported from here.
Right.
And key is also imported from here. And then if there's other functions, so let's say we have a Selenium -web WebDriver. I can't type today. Here are your key class, your origin, your until, your promise. These are all sub-methods or subclasses inside your WebDriver.
Okay, is there any way to get them all without making a humongous payload?
No. You can do what you did, you can do that. But you can also just say
Yeah.
WebDriver and do the exact same thing. And in the future, down here in the code, what you're going to be calling is WebDriver dot key dot whatever. So really, you're not adding that much to what you're doing with all those concepts that you have. So back to this example here. So if you look at builder dot, and all you're doing is you're just creating a reference for this builder variable to pull in the library of Selenium WebDriver.
Okay.
That's all you do.
Okay.
So WebDriver as a variable doesn't import everything. It sort of stands at the ready, and the submethod is what's called after the dot. Is that what you're saying? Or does it? Because you were saying that it was essentially doing the same thing that Angel was doing. I mean, Angel was trying, if I understand you correctly, to avoid a gigantic payload by importing all of the submethods. So WebDriver is just like a kind of like
Think of it as a shortcut.
yeah, like a table of contents sort of.
Yeah, it's a shortcut.
So just know that anything that is not defined in the file will get called once you require it in.
Mhm.
So if you have anything like for example, where it says function get driver with stuff, you're defining a function there.
Yeah.
So calling this file won't run that function, but everything above it where you're saying var WebDriver equals require all that,
Yeah.
any file that this gets imported into, it will run var WebDriver. It will actually run that and load everything inside of it. So if it's defined, then it doesn't. If there's anything that's like this variable equals this, it will call that immediately once you say import WebDriver.
That's because it's global.
Correct.
Yeah.
Then common
So
programming.
it does do stuff. It's essentially a constructor.
Okay.
Yeah, it's easier to explain it in Java because you have constructors, you have methods, you have.
ES6, you have constructors.
Yes, you do.
Yep.
But is it really a constructor?
Yeah.
I'm just used to doing the Java stuff. Java stuff just makes sense.
Oh,
So wrapping my mind around this JavaScript.
find some Python in there.
I like Python too. Python's awesome.
I love Python. I wish more people let me use it.
Awesome.
Workfront uses Python. You should defect and go there.
I have a 2-minute commute to my job.
That is attractive. I get it. That's hard to beat.
I have to drive 20 minutes to get here from my job. Have fun.
Okay, so let's break down the driver class. So one, you have to have a builder. And the reason why you have to have a builder is the one that kind of pieces all the variables together and everything like that. And once you do a builder, that collects all the variables, all what you want to run, what you want to do for your build, for your browser, then it does a build. When it does a build, it returns basically an object to your driver. Okay, so it's actually not your driver doing the building. It's not WebDriver, it's actually the builder that's doing the building, and then just returns your reference to that object.
Okay.
Build. So that's what this line of code is. So it says builder, new WebDriver builder. And really, if you don't want to do the remote browser,
Is that what RM stands for?
Yeah.
Remote? Okay.
remote. So here I'm just using a remote. If the remote value that I got passed into my function here, let's see if I can minimize this. I hate that I can't minimize this whole entire section, this commented out section. But here, there's three values that's passed in: a browser type, a remote, and a mobile type. So here it's going to check if the remote is null, or if it's empty, then I won't try to run this using server. If there's a value in here, then I pass that value into the using server, so it knows how to use remote hub rather than my own local server.
What's it passing in? Builder is, you're passing in browser, remote, and what's the type? Back to the top of the function, the signature. Oh, mobile type, mobile.
Yeah, mobile type.
So like, what would an example of that be?
iPhone.
iPhone, okay.
Yeah, iPhone X. So here, it's only going to execute this line, like these 3 lines of code, if there is a remote server that I want to run the automation on. If it doesn't exist there, I don't need to have the builder do it. That's why it skips this builder.using server. Okay. Now, if the browser is not null, then I'll know, okay, I'm going to tell the builder, go build it for this type of browser. So it can be Firefox, Internet Explorer, Edge, Chrome. And then I say builder.forBrowser and pass in the browser. So these are all nested little calls that I'm passing into that builder. You can chain it to do a dot, builder.do this, dot, builder.do this, dot, builder.do this. Or you can say builder.do this and then go to the next one. So if I didn't care about all these other things here, I can do builder dot, what is this one? For browser, Chrome as a variable that I pass in. Dot build. But instead of doing the dot notation to do the command chaining, all I'm doing is breaking it up since builder.build. And this will do the exact same thing. So anytime you see a command chaining, you can separate those commands up. You don't have to use that full command. The only time you have to use the full command is if you're using an action builder. And I'll show you what an action builder looks like. So here I'm going to say I'm going to use this type of browser. So it's going to be, if I pass in Chrome, it's going to be Chrome. The reason why I put an else statement right here is that if the user never passes in a value of browser.
This is your default?
Yeah, this is my default. All I'm doing is just generating default. And here all I'm doing is just calling, saying browser equals Chrome. And it does exact same line of code here.
Do you actually need the else then? Couldn't you just say, build it for Chrome?
Yeah, you can. You don't need that else. What you can do is if builder is not equal to null, rip this out. And we can refactor this code to say if it's equals to null. And let's comment out. That code right there solves the exact same problem,
Yeah.
right? Because all it's going to do is just say,
Get less line duplication.
yep. Yeah, good catch.
Okay.
We just simplified it some more. Because you know this line has to execute. So here, that's all we're doing right now is trying to identify any lines of code that looks exactly the same. Let's see if there's a way to get rid of it. And this one, the only time that we really need to have to execute this line of code, browser equals something, is when it's null. Skinny code, awesome. Okay, so now we're going to say if browser to lowercase equals Chrome, and we get a mobile type, meaning that this mobile type was filled in, that somebody passed in a value, and they passed in iPhone X or Nexus 5, Nexus 6, and you can see the values in this. Devices. Man, they just upgraded Chrome. How do I simulate my mobile device?
I think it's up top.
Oh, there it is. Good catch. Okay. So when you click on this button, this little toggle device bar right here, that's how you can simulate or emulate a mobile device. And these values are exactly what they look see right here. So they're just a perfect string match. And you're welcome to add more devices in this list. If you want to, you can also generate your own custom devices. So you can say, I want a custom device, I want a 1+7. Put in your pixels range that you want, your device pixel ratio. And you can say mobile, no touch, desktop, no touch. Say mobile, hit add, and then you're done. So you generated your own mobile device. This comes in handy when you have to test weird screen resolutions. If it's like 18:9 by 9 or a 21:4 resolution where it's really skinny, you can create your own custom devices. And then when you create your custom devices, when you want to test mobile, all you're going to do is just pass in that variable that you created. So if I created that 1+, here's the mobile type would equal 1+7. But this will only work on my Chrome because that's what I added. It won't work on somebody else's Chrome. Okay. So this all I was doing is saying browser name equals Chrome. I'm forcing this to be Chrome. It has to have a value of Chrome. If you leave this out like that, it does not work. You would think that just by default, because I'm right up here saying that it's for Chrome, that it'll work. You have to explicitly tell it the capabilities of what you want to generate. And then it's going to do a builder with capabilities because now we have these variables I'm going to pass into the browser. That's what we're going to do with the capabilities. And then after that, the last line is builder.build. And this will start your web browser and then return to the variable driver, the driver object for your browser. And the other thing here I did is if the mobile type is null, then I know it's going to be a desktop. So I just do a driver.manage window.maximize. So it maximizes your whole entire browser. And then lastly here, I'm going to return this driver to whatever function is being called. Remember, you got to return everything back to whoever's calling it. Otherwise, they're going to say, I don't know, you just gave it. Questions about reducing code?
I have a pragmatic question, I guess.
Okay.
So the UVU has a developers club with students there, and there was one lecture with a student who was interning at a company, and he said, yeah, sure, we learn about best practices in class, and then we go to work, and if we can ship something 2 weeks early, I hope that's the right vocabulary, then we should, and we'll just refactor that eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if the workflow of companies, is creating skinny code an ideal, or does it actually happen at the workplace, or is that too specific a question to answer and each company's different?
Actually, it's individual. One of the things that in all programming classes that they teach you is to never use global variables.
Yeah.
Okay, never use global variables. But guess what? For automation stuff, it worked great. So why wouldn't we use it? The other thing is if you start adding more duplicate code, the longer you wait, the harder it is to refactor. So let me show you this example.
Yeah, that's why I asked, because he said, we'll refactor that eventually, and I thought, well, when will that be? So I'm only checking how grounded the concepts you're teaching are in the average workplace.
Ideally, do it as early as possible, because otherwise you're going to get into this mess that we have right here. This is the driver class I'm using at my current client. We first started with this GetDriver class, and then because we needed more variables and more different tweaks with it, we created this GetDriver1. And now, keep going. We have two classes or two methods that essentially does the exact same thing. The only thing that's different is right here, this datastream.get. So this GetDriver1 uses a Excel spreadsheet and pumps all the data inside that Excel spreadsheet into a giant object that we pass along from one function to another function. And that object is our data object that each of the tests can read from. Well, we have a bunch of tests that are using this GetDriver. And some of those tests do not read or do not even need the data stream stuff. So time to refactor, that's a lot of code that we have to refactor, retest, and make sure they still work. And we can do a search and replace, but we can't guarantee that's still going to work. We can't guarantee it's going to compile. So ideally, if you can make it minimal upfront, do it as quickly as possible. And that's why the easiest way is just to create all these different patterns. You know, like Firefox build, Firefox here, and like anytime you get 2 lines of code that looks almost identical, figure out a new way to do it. Same thing with what we did here for this right here.
I have a question. The Chrome options on mine is got a squiggly line. What am I doing? Why don't I have?
Your Chrome options,
Yeah, right here.
right here.
Where?
This is this right here is a JSON object.
Oh,
Each value pair of
it's a JSON. Okay, it's a JSON. Okay, that's all you had to say.
Yeah. Well, everybody else, you have to have a comment here. If you don't have a comment here, that's a squiggly line that Angel was talking about. It's a JSON object, so it's always key value pair.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so now that we factor that driver, let's go to this.
Oh, what was the last few lines of that line? So,
I'm just returning a mobile type. If the mobile type is
Okay.
not null, then I'm going to do driver.maximize. Sorry, if it is null, I'm going to do driver.maximize. But if I have a mobile type, I really don't need to maximize my browser because it'll fit as a mobile size. And if you want to set orientation, you can. If you want to set, typically it's orientation. I think by default it loads it in portrait view, but you can say I want to rotate to landscape.
oh, you can. Oh, you can.
Mhm.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Anything that you see that you can do in the browser that you can manipulate, you can do in code, which is awesome. You just got to find out what the function is, or how to call it.
I guess you could just comment it out, but do you have a way to like turn it off and on? Like as you go through and test, like if you wanted to test it as half the screen instead of a maximized version?
Yeah, you can just do that.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Return it. Okay.
Okay. So that's how you would refactor your driver. So now if you look at our driver, let's delete all those drivers that I don't need here. Delete. Now my home driver class that handles all of our remote stuff is 41 lines of code. And we actually have a few lines of comments right here. So really it's about 38 lines of code to handle your remote, your mobile, and your browser type, which is pretty awesome.
It's a thing of beauty.
Yeah. Whereas before, if I add these lines back, 9 to 39, I have, before it was 30 lines of code that did the exact same thing over and over again. That doesn't even include all the remote or the mobile stuff. Yeah.
So in my project, I have a driver.js file, and it's got some of this stuff. I guess we must have worked on it before, but do we actually call this driver?
Yes, we will call it. Let's go back to,
So mine's not in the shape that yours is in now,
okay.
but but we'll call that later.
Yeah, so now that we put this driver in the common folder, you can put it at the root of your projects. You can put anything you want to. You just gotta know how to reference it.
Right, yeah.
Let's just go to this test result here. And to reference it, all I do is call whatever variable you want to call it. I call this one here driver manager, require /comment/driver as an import. And remember, remember this exports right here. This modules export is what maps your function right here to a public exposed method.
Right, the export.
Yep. If you don't have this export, you won't be able to do anything with it.
Go back to how you're calling again. Is it in the parentheses? Okay, that's right. So you have the relative path to where the driver.js is,
Mhm.
right? Okay,
Relative to what this file is.
to this location.
So
Okay.
this file here, let's minimize the comment, minimize this, minimize that. So notice this test results is actually at the root of my project.
Mhm.
So since this is at the root of my project, I call common/drivers. Now if I move this test result, let's copy it, let's throw it into challenge 11. At this point, this reference will not work.
Because it'll go to the root challenge.
Challenge 11.
Yeah.
So now I need to put a double dot.
Mine is a double dot. I've got it in a different folder.
So I'm going to put a double dot and same with these.
If you do it right, it pops it up.
Yeah. If you don't do it right, nothing will pop up, which is awesome. So here, if you didn't do it right, you can start saying, I want to do dot dot. Let's do slash. I know it's in common. Slash, nothing happens. So if I do dot dot slash common
Yep.
slash.
Yep.
Driver.
Okay.
Oh.
So it's relative to the file that it's called from.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so sometimes there's other tricks to it, but don't worry about those other tricks yet. Right now, just worry about just how do you call a file that's in a different directory.
And then you just call get driver, right?
Yep.
Okay, got it.
There's another bug in here though, we gotta fix.
In there?
Right here,
Let's see.
it's right up top.
You don't need the Webdriver anymore, do you? Yes, you do.
It's in this reference right here. Where's this node modules? Because right here in challenge 11, I don't have a node modules. So what I did was I moved the package JSON to the root of my project.
Oh,
Okay, and I did an npm install. So if you do a dir right here, there's my package JSON right there.
right, and the no modules of the roots. So you have to do double dot there too, right?
Yep, and then when I do an npm install, it creates this node modules folder for me, download all the dependencies, all the libraries. So then now, back to this test results that's in my challenge 11, I also need to add a dot to it as well.
Okay.
And to know that you imported it incorrectly. So let's say I do that. And I do Mocha test results. You're going to get this thing. 2 lowercase of null. Quit of undefined. You're like, why are all these undefined here? Or null? It's because your import is incorrect. Okay, so if anything comes back as undefined or null, it's because your imports are wrong. So that's why you do a dot. And then you have all your functions imported correctly. So let's take a look and see if this actually runs the thing. I still missed it import in there. Wait, my quit. Driver manager. Return, driver.quit. What did I do to break this? Before 2 lowercase. Common driver. Also right here, it tells you which line of code it's breaking on. It's right here, driver.js 50, 32. So let's go to 50. 32. So right here, this browser to lowercase is not being called correctly, and that's what's puking up. Why? The easiest way is just do a console.log.
Yeah.
Let's see what this browser comes back as.
Oh, it's not been defined.
Dash defined up here because I'm just passing it in.
You're right, you're right.
But something's not acting correctly. And we just quit right there. And we can look at, oh, it's null.
Yeah, it's not passing anything in.
Why is it null? Because I have, if browser equals null, browser equals Chrome.
Doesn't it have to be 2 equals to be an equal? Sorry, my bad, I should have typed it in.
Now it's right, Brenda. Okay, now it's looking better. Now let's see if we get a CAPTCHA. Hey, I didn't get a CAPTCHA, yay. Okay, so if you watch this, it's quick, but watch the pagination being triggered right there. I'm also clicking on the details, I'm gonna run another search, and go run another, same set of pagination. Click on the details, search for Bugatti, and it pukes because there's no search results.
There's no Bugatti. What is a Bugatti?
A Bugatti?
Super nice car.
Yeah,
So I would never look
$1.2
for it.
million car.
So I would never look for it. I don't want $2 million.
It's the kind of car you can take on the Autobahn.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I don't live there.
You can take a Dodge Caravan on the auto.
I know, I'm just saying, like, you can.
Would you get out of
take
it?
it on the Autobahn.
You
Yeah.
drive fast in your Dodge Caravan, okay?
You can go
90 miles
70
an
miles an hour, yeah.
Okay, so let's go to
Bring my
this
DeLorean.
test
One more
results.
time. One more time.
Mhm.
You just hit the driver JS one more time. I just want to make sure. See, that's outside the function, that's inside the function or outside the function? Oh, that's inside the function.
That's
Yours
inside
is
the
just all commented out. Okay. Okay, so I think mine's right. Okay.
Okay, so now you saw all those things pop by and flash, and like, what the crap did it do? Well, all I did was, so look, I actually created a couple of other functions. I have one that handles the filters. So the first one is to open the filter section. So this step here, you'll open up simulation. It opens up these sections right here. If you look at my code, I am doing a driver.findElements on this X path right here. And once I find the element I want, so right here, if you look at the code, it's going to get text, kind of like what I said. There's a filter name. So the filter name is what I tell this function to click on. So if I want to click on damage, this filter name that I passed in the string would be called damage. And then once it gets here, it's going to say, does it match what I'm looking for? Once it finds the filter array, remember this right here, this filter array, it's every one of these filter types right here, and a big giant array of elements. So I'm going to match up the text, and once I find a match, that's the web element I want to click on. So now I'm over here, that's what I do, filter whatever count that is, do a click. And then it'll pass the rest of the array, finish the action, and then it's ready for the next step. The filter selection, what does this guy do? Amazing, I forgot what I wrote.
Checking the box on the filters.
Labs, yeah. Filter, send keys. Okay, so filter, search filter section. So right here, that's searching for this. And if you look at the pattern for this line of code, it's just ng model filter.search text. And ng model filter search text. So right here, I am looking for the filter count. And the reason I'm doing filter count is that in this list here, this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's not really a good way to get past that other than just filter count. So if I know I want to click on the year, I know the filter count based on what I got in this find element is that it's going to be 5. Right? If you look at collapse, let's copy this X path right here. And let's go to remote. I don't need this one. Do F, Control F. And notice this filter count does not exist. I know it's going to be 0.
You're going to do the brackets around 0 for index?
No, because what it is. No, that should work. Let's see. There it is.
Oh, okay.
They start counting up. So 1 is newly added lots. 2 is hidden because it's not opened yet. 2 is going to be feature items. That's what this part right here is doing. And where did I set this filter count? So this filter count is actually set right up here in the filter section, the open filter section. And this filter count actually created a global variable set to 0. Okay, so once I know which section I want to click on, remember I'm moving through all these different filter types. And once I find the right one, this one here is going to be the source. The source right here is going to be 11. So when I know it's 11, I'm going to set that variable to my global so that the next line of code that I need to execute right here is that it knows it's going to be filter count 11, and within that, I'm going to have a search text. I'm going to go to the input, to the search text field, and do the send keys. So here, if you look at, let's do year, go and do 2019, it shrinks it down, narrows down the results. Next one, next function, click filter checkboxes. This one's pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to click the filter checkbox I want. So if I enter 2019, I'm going to select this 2019. I'm going to change results. In my odometer, that's too big. Let's go to models. I'll go to 300. And once I search that, it's going to have these filters. Or if I don't want to search it, I just need to know which filters I want to click on the first ones here. So if I want to click on the 200 and click on 200, it'll change it. And then get all checkbox options. This one is, let's say we, instead of just clicking on one checkbox, we just want to display all the options that are available because I really don't know what's here. I can just pull all of them that's available in this list. So that handles all the filters in this whole entire section so that when I call my code, I don't know if I put a code in filters. Filter. No, I didn't do that. I didn't use a filter yet in this example. Let's go look at the where's my pagination? Search results right here. Okay, so the search results, the reason why I called this search results is this whole entire section right here from here all the way down to here is part of my search results. Okay, so I'm going to create one function that handles all the interactions within this whole entire div, this big giant div. And in here you do have your search again. You have your pagination, you have your show entries, and then you have your checkboxes, and you also can click on detail right here to see the vehicle. So now if I go to this search results here, I'm exposing a bunch of functions right here. Change display option 2. So here, remember this, I think we did this in, I think challenge 5, we were doing this by changing it to 100. All I did was just move that function into this search results. I created one for pagination next, pagination first, pagination last, pagination previous, and pagination page. So if I want to click on a specific page, and the reason why I did this, if you look at this code right here, is trying to find the server-side table last. If I want to go to last. This is one reason why I like this site, is that they actually built it really well, so that this next, and this last right here has a specific ID with it. And it's right here. So the server-side table last, next is right here. And if you want to go to a specific page, you have a data index. That's one greater than the one you want to click on. So if it's 2 that you want to click on, it's data index 3. If it's 7, the data index is, where is that data index? Oh, this one's disabled. Okay, so there's data index. So page 5, your data index is 6. So there's some magic numbers you can tweak with there based on what you see as a pattern on here, and that's what I did. If you look at the page, I did a page, -1. And notice I'm passing a variable inside to this XPath. So this is my XPath I'm looking for. I'm actually passing a variable into that.
Right.
So it finds it. The other thing you can do with this too is if you want to change if you want to reduce the pagination, look at this. You can say last, previous, first. Here's your next. You can actually reduce this down to 3 lines of code too. If you say, if you want to use the pagination, you have to pass in these specific values that match.
The title, pagination,
Yeah. So.
and then the page.
Yep. So you actually do the pagination and then a pagination page. So two functions rather than all those different functions right here that I'm exposing. Which right here I have a pagination because I did exactly that.
Yep.
And right here, the pagination, I have a command that I want to do and the page I want to go to. So I know that if I want to click on, if I have a command of next, then it's going to go click on the next page. And that's what we did here.
So page is not required.
Yep. The page is not required. But if I have a, that's only if page is null and command is not else, I'm assuming that page is going to be
Where you want to go.
where we want to go. And that's why I'm going to do a different value here. So really this line of code, I handled all the pagination. So I can now go back and delete all this code. Oops. Delete all that code. So here's a question. Why wouldn't I want to delete this code right now?
Because you haven't tested the new code.
I tested it. But if I have another test that's calling this pagination first, and I delete this, you're going to get something that's not coming back. It's undefined. So that's back to your question of when you should do it front before somebody starts using this. Because the second that you expose this method to somebody, trying to refactor and reduce all these out, pull these out, it's a lot harder.
So is it safe to assume that there will always be cruft no matter what because that's part of the continuous integration process?
Yeah, there's always going to be refactors. And ideally, you refactor as early as possible. That's what we call tech debt. Once you get too much tech debt, it's not worth refactoring. You just deal with it. And the next time you want to build an app, you rewrite it.
Mm-hmm.
And really, that's it. It's because there's so much crap in there, trying to refactor all this stuff and trying to find every reference to it, it's going to be impossible. So in this example right here, this search, this test results, this is my test that calls into the search results and Tesla's results. So notice right here, I have the results.pagination last, results.pagination previous, and down here, I have results.pagination, and I'm passing in the previous string, pagination last, pagination first. So now I have tests that are calling both different methods. I'm going to have to leave that method in there. I can't just rip it out unless I want to refactor these guys here. But that's really all I was doing. So if you look at this test now, this test becomes one liner test. I'm going to search for Bugatti. It didn't find anything. Remember, it found 0 results. Well, everything past here, that's all going to fail now. It's not going to run. And I have a lot of debug here. And I have the wrong debug message here. Where's my Bugatti? Right here. So here, it should say run search for Nissan, because I copy and pasted. So here it should say, should run search results for Bugatti. That failed. Should look at server-side table to find Bugatti in a list. It failed. All these other things failed as well. But previous to this, everything else passed. Look at my bugs right here. Not looking for Nissan on this one, on this test. But all my tests are just one-liners now. They're not multiple lines. So now if I want to generate tests, I've generated how many tests here? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Or actually, that's 10. So 10 tests per section. So on this, I'm actually running 30 different tests. But yet I've only written how many lines of code. So there's your refactor. Scale your code down as minimal as possible to run as many tests as possible. And header search is something similar. That's all that code right there handles everything in the header. So on any page that I'm at, I can call this header search, and it will return me that back to a known location with a list of results or no results, either one. And this header search is utilized right here. So right here, I call into header search. Header search for Nissan. And down here, I have header search for Honda.
It still says Nissan.
Ah. Honda.
And then, yeah, that one too.
Honda.
You're slipping, Matt.
I am slipping. That's what happens when you copy and paste. Yeah, look at this.
There's more Nissan with the Bugatti stuff.
Yeah, you can tell how much I copy and pasted, huh? Okay, that should be it.
You have any son?
Any questions on how to reduce this? This right here, in this example, in this code right here, this is what you want to get to. Your test steps should be one test step. And when I do a header search for Bugatti, I don't really need to know to the end user. So let's say you're writing, for me, if you're writing as an STED, what I write is I write this stuff here. I expose my function to people who are just writing the tests themselves. The people who are writing and maintaining the test, this is all they need to write right here. They just need to know how to call my function. But at the same time, if you look at the pagination, search results. In my pagination, I have to handle when the results is ready for the end consumer to utilize. So I have to put my weights right here. When I change my pagination, you'll see this spinner right here. So I handle that spinner before I return to the user, you're ready for your next step. Because I really don't know what they're doing. They might click on this and click on this, click on this, and they might go to 6, 7, all the way up to 587. I really don't know. I don't care. But I need to make sure that the page is ready to interact. So watch that spinner.
So I have a question about who's writing one-line tests and who's writing functions. Would this be the same person, or on a team, do you have someone who's writing functions and then another person who's writing the one-liner test that just need to know how to call it?
Somebody who's senior level, write the functions. Somebody who's junior, write the test steps. So as a SDET or a senior programmer, all you're doing is providing the tools, and then you let the junior people who knows how to use the tools utilize the tools.
Oh, okay.
Like building a house. I'm not gonna try to teach you how to build a hammer. I'm just gonna give you the hammer and say just pound it.
Right.
Right. But I'll figure out how to build that hammer.
Okay.
And figure out what to throw it.
Cool. Thanks.
What other questions do you guys have? As far as reducing code. Because if you look at this, what I did here have all this functionality built, I have all this functionality built, including clicking on one of these results, all this handled, everything in here handled, and in this part handled, and total lines of code. If you strip out this, about 50 lines of code, okay? 50 lines of code in the search results. In the screenshots, I have 20 lines of code, so 70 code line. This navigate to, this navigate to is how it handles the individual click into the results. So this is about 25, let's round that up to 30, so about 100 lines of code. The header search, about another 15. The filters here, pretty optimized, so we're looking at about 60 lines of code total. So you're looking at about 160 lines of code. And plus, if I rip out all this stuff here, for about 40. So roughly within about 200 lines of code, in this whole entire project, I'm handling all the interactions.
Is that what they call the page object model? Is that what you're doing there?
Yes. Yeah. The difference between, so some people, they like to write a page object model based on what they see on the page. So this is the page, they write the functions, but they never expose all the functions to everybody else. So every page, you're maintaining your own page object model. So I kind of look at it as more of a functional model. So my function is, this is a function, this is a function, these are individual functions, and this is the individual function. So let's create a function that handles those interactions. So within 200 lines of code, I can drive pretty much 60, 70% of this website. Now it's easy to maintain. If somebody changes, let's say they change the location of this section right here, because it's all relative XPath, if they add another div in here, it should be easy to add. If they change the indexing in here from to match that, remember that page number. What is the search results right here? If I want to go to this page, remember it's page -1. If they match up the index, I just need to delete that in one location and everything else is fixed. Rather than you guys writing your test.
And do it in each instance of a test.
Yep. You got to copy that and paste that whole entire thing over and over again. Think about how many times you have to fix that.
Yeah. Could you just take, maybe it's obvious if I just look at it for a second, but take each of these are tests, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just take any given one and just show me what it's doing in the website.
So let's do this. Okay, so let's do this sort by. What it's going to do, it's going to look for this locked model, and this locked model goes up here, and model. Here's my most locked model. Yeah. What I'm going to do is click on this column right here,
Yeah.
and it's going to sort that column.
Okay.
Right here, there's ID locked model.
So even though the label there is model, it's ID'd with lot model. So you call it lot model.
I'm passing in this ID that one.
Passing the ID.
Yeah. So if I want to do year,
You want to sort by model.
yeah. If I want to sort by year, I'm going to pass in lot year. If I want to sort by item, I'm going to pass in auction assignment number.
Gotcha. Okay. So that test is doing a search and then sorting by model.
Yep. It's going to sort it by the model, and then I'm going to go and click on it.
And then you're going to page through it, right?
Yep. 3, last, first.
Okay.
Previous should be disabled.
Is that what we're doing in challenge 5? I can't really remember.
Challenge 5, we're looking for Porsche in the list of the exotics that, well, you're supposed to search for Porsche
Yeah.
and then count the number of models per that are the same.
Oh, right, right.
And then you're supposed to do the damage types.
Yep.
And it was not fun. It was not fun. I'm just gonna say that now.
It wasn't fun?
No,
The sorting.
I can't say that well, the sorting, so JavaScript sort sucks. I'm gonna say that here now.
Mine were great.
Well, did you write your own sort?
No, I did not.
Their default sort does not handle numbers with, when it had a number at the beginning and letters at the end, it didn't sort alphabetically at all. It would just put it anywhere. Like the 911 car, whatever that
Yeah,
is.
911 Carrera.
And then whatever, scroll down,
Okay.
you'll have some other 911 thingies.
914.
Yeah, anything with numbers that had words after it
Uh-huh.
would sort where the words were instead of where the numbers were.
Sounds like you might have a weird sort.
I just took the sort, dot sort.
So here's the question.
It was horrible.
Sounds fine.
That's why I went to a dictionary function. It didn't need a sort for that.
Let's see. All I did was models count dot sort.
Yeah, that's what I did too, and it didn't work.
Did you do models count push on your model? Because what you might have in there is spaces that you included.
Okay,
So you might not be putting the right value in there. But also remember,
what's the push do?
push just takes whatever value and throws it into the array.
I don't think I did. Let me look at my JS.
The other thing that you remember to do is, remember you're trying to get the text and not the promise. Remember, if I don't have this await right here,
Right.
it's going to return me the promise. And so model is going to be the promise.
No, I had models, like I was printing out everything that was right. So I did a model. Well, I didn't use an array, dude. That's what I went to
Oh, you
dictionary.
didn't need, okay.
I went to dictionary because dictionary was easier.
It is easier. But array is what you're going to be using.
Oh, you didn't say that to use an array. You just said you had the goal was to have the count of the models and the count of the damages that you listed.
You know, it brings up an interesting question. I actually talked to a couple friends of mine about being able to parse the numbers, the word, you know, spelled out numbers, whether it was more indicative of how things are at work to find a well-written library where somebody had done that and to import it, or to write it all from scratch. And I think that this is a question that people come up against all the time, which can, at least the way I observe, which either, I mean, like maybe it's a gamble, maybe it isn't, maybe you kind of learn how to feel out whether a library is written well, maybe you don't have enough time. So I opted for both, but I imported that library anyway, just as a practice to see, I mean, like it worked. And one of my mentors said that proper engineering is strategic laziness, like how to figure out the right kind of, so I don't know, I feel like that's kind of what you were saying also, Angel.
It is.
Well,
You want to be lazy. You want to be as lazy as
like
possible.
in the right way though, like,
Yes.
like smart about it.
Don't ever try to reinvent the wheel. Unless the wheel doesn't have
a good invention.
the glowy light that you want.
Right.
Right. So in Java, we call it extending the wheel.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to take what's built on the wheel and we're just going to extend it and add another little feature to it.
Uh-huh.
Another little widget. That's all we're doing. But really, we're not reinventing that wheel.
Until the tech debt is too huge that you have to, right?
Right. Which at that point, everything just blows up. Right. The other thing we can do is, let's say you have the wheel, you have the structure of the wheel, but you don't like it because it doesn't fit what you're looking for. So you know a wheel has to have a hub, has to have bolts in it, and has to have a tire on it. Well, that wheel by default, it might be only 13-inch wheel. Well, I'm going to buy this big truck and I need a 20-inch wheel. So I'm going to overload my parameters and say I want a 20-inch wheel and plus this other widget here. So I'm going to extend that class and overload that class. So now I have a 20-inch wheel, but as far as the functionality of what it does with the light bulb and how it rotates, I don't have to worry about that. I'll let somebody else worry about that. How that increases, decreases my speed, I don't really care about it. I don't need to know that. So that's why you want to be as lazy as possible, but you got to make sure the function works. Like the sort, it has to work. And one of the things I've seen with the sort not working is the await, because I'm not looking at the value. So as you're working on these challenges and you're saying, well, well, the sort doesn't work, print out your whole entire list. Print out everything that you see on the page, print out everything you have that you're holding in a variable, and see what is in that weight. What are you looking for? Because if you can't see what you're expecting, it's kind of hard to write code to say, well, this is what I need to tweak with, or this isn't working. And sometimes it could just be a space. Sometimes it could be an unescaped character. It could be something that's weird. You really don't know until you print it out. So if you look at my code right here, I have console.log.
Yeah.
I loop through everything. And for this one, I don't have a loop. But just remember the awaits. The awaits is what gets, oh yeah, there is a console.log.
Yeah.
So I'm just logging, how many times do I expect to run through this loop? And I have a console log right here. It'll loop through, it'll count how many times I'm looping through this function. But give yourself as much debug as possible because it doesn't hurt you.
Sweet.
We had so much, yeah, in challenge 4, we had a console.log everywhere.
Yep. Yeah, the reason why you want to do console.log, so let's say if these are your values that you're getting back, and you want to be able to trap this somewhere, right? If you know the first part is going to be integers, if you want to stop and figure out where it breaks on that, then you find your logic. And on challenge 6 or 7, which one is it? Challenge 7. Show you the quick code to it. This one here, all it's going to do, it's going to go to, let's see if I can, here goes nothing. I'm trying to run it for you guys. Challenge. This one here, I'm going to grab all the links on the first page. I'm going to browse to each page and verify that the data load. Oops, right here. Kind of nice, it's still working. I know there's roughly about 20 pages. But for mine, for some reason, earlier when I was running it, went too fast. Made that pop. What did I do here? I broke my own code. Let's try running. So it's going to grab all those makes and links, and it should go through. Why did it stop? I'll have to see why it stopped. But one of the main problems I had was that I'm actually counting the array, and there I have a logic in there where it would only stop at 10. Because I was incrementing and decrementing at the same time. So when I do an array push, I push up something onto the array. When I do an array pop, taking something off. Well, if I have two counters right here, eventually they're going to be equal. When they equal, it's gonna that's my breakpoint. So I was sitting there and I'm like, why isn't it going to all the pages? It's going to the pages just fine. Why is it always stopping at a certain number? So I just started doing console.log. And all of a sudden I see the two numbers, oh, they both equal 10. So of course you're going to stop. It's going to break out and never get to the rest. But why it's not working today, I'm not sure. I think I was showing a bunch of other people the code challenge. I probably did something. But really this one is just grab all these links and click on this page, 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 so on and so forth. This one, you're going to grab the text for this first link and make sure this page displays Ultimate somewhere on the page. This one's Impreza, so make sure Impreza is somewhere displayed. This one's Corolla. Yeah, Corolla. Next one's Legacy. So make sure Legacy. Oh, it broke. Huh? They can't find Legacy.
More legacy cars.
R.I.P.
That's interesting.
Submit a bug report, please.
They have a bug. We found a bug on their site. Oh, for real? That's awesome.
Order $3.50, please.
I can do Subaru. That's probably what's breaking, is that it's going through this list. Where's GMC at?
Nowhere, at the bottom.
Okay, so I'm going through this. I bet you, I wonder if Jeep is broken too.
Why?
No, Jeep is good. GMC's good. So something's breaking that script. I'll go debug it. But this Legacy would definitely break because I'm actually looking for this data table right here. Because I assume that if it's on the front page, I would have to click on the link that shows me the results. So they got something wrong with their filter. But same thing with this Ford. I don't know there. Come on, go back. Ford, Toyota, Chevy, Nissan, Honda, Sonata, Jetta, Snowmobile, Elantra, and Focus. Ford's good. Toyota's good. Chevrolet's good. Nissan's good. Or you know, Nissan's always good. Honda, Sonata, Jetta, Snowmobile. What the? Why is Snowmobile on the list? Oh, this is good. Snowmobile, Subaru, Elantra, Focus. But yeah, Legacy is broken. Not sure how that made it as a popular search result.
Hey, I wanted a legacy car.
What is the word for that in Subaru? Let me see. Subaru.
Isn't Legacy a type of Subaru?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
It's a submodel.
right.
Yeah, it works fine when you type in Subaru Legacy, but doesn't work when you type in Legacy.
Maybe because it's not called a legacy.
Is
Maybe
it
it's called
popular
Super Legacy now.
search?
One,
Like maybe if you tried to search town and country, it would fail, but if you search Chrysler, town and country would be fine.
but here's the thing, if I'm able to search for a model, and there's a Legacy as a model, found one.
Yeah.
You should be able to find it.
What'd you say?
Well, it's just sad that you're.
Somebody messed up.
Yeah. I'll figure out why it works without trying to hack into their site.
Okay.
You should realize we're just testing. I wonder if they have a test that would go for it.
So I wonder if there's a way they can just give us access to their internal test site.
Yeah, that'd be sweet if we got access to it.
Things we find.
I mean, heck, look how much stuff we're running through their search.
Free QA.
200 lines of code. Give it to you for free.
Have you tried contacting them?
No, not yet. I only found out this yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And I was preparing for this presentation.
This was a crazy presentation.
Yeah.
Oh,
Look
I'm
at it.
so appreciative that you put the history up there. I feel like that makes it a lot easier to understand new concepts. Thank you.
So, I'll quickly run through this. So here's my presentation. Give me some feedback. And give you the details on what the WebDriver is. A little brief history. One real quick. Some more history continued. Why the name Selenium? Just a little funny joke in there. So it's actually a competition to Mercury Interactive. So Huggins is the guy who wrote this. He's mocking the competitor named Mercury, saying that cure for mercury poisoning is by taking selenium supplements. Mercury Interactive, when I was at Novell, they won, our annual license was $1 million a year. So that's why we started using selenium, because it's free. So this fits in that.
Cost cut.
Yeah. Competing products that would do your web automation, the languages and the operating system that it supports, and Selenium IDE. And for those of you who don't know, if you guys want to get started using the Selenium IDE again, it is available. Selenium IDE 3.0 got released last year, late 2018.
It's kind of fun to look at.
Mm-hmm. It's easy. It's great to pull in element IDs that you don't. Like if you're still having trouble trying to find an element ID, use a Selenium IDE because it's going to help you identify that. A little bit more about Selenium IDE uses a specialized language called Selenium, but you can use the API, the Webdriver API, and program in whatever language you want to. Selenium RC was actually the Selenium remote control server. We call now the node and the hub. So,
Do you mention the standalone server?
yes. So this is what you need to do to get started with, if you want to build a framework using this, the stuff that I presented. You need Java, TestNG is your test framework. So Java is equivalent to NodeJS, TestNG is equivalent to Mocha. Maven is a package manager. So if you look at the package JSON, that's what Maven is. Jenkins is a build server, and GitHub Bitbucket Subversion.
Why would you use Subversion and GitHub?
No, you can use any.
Oh, any, okay.
Browsers supported: Chrome, Firefox, Opera, Safari. Headless browsers. If you don't want to use a heavy-loaded, slow browser rendering, you can use Headless, Internet Explorer, and last but not least, I put Edge at the bottom.
I will say this, headless is harder to write code for because you can't see anything.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing right now, is they do all headless testing with their Selenium, and I'm like, oh, I gotta see what this is doing, I have no clue what it's doing.
Okay, so here's the corresponding drivers. So in the past, the driver is actually included in the browser itself, with like Firefox. That's why Firefox worked natively out of the box with Webdriver. But since Firefox 55, they ripped that driver out to make it more compact because it was a big install. And now the driver is completely maintained separately. So you have to coordinate that with your framework. I know a couple people this last week, they on their project, their first coding challenge, it stopped working, gave them the error that the driver that they have only works for Chrome 70 to 73, but Chrome is updated 74. So what you would need to do in that instance, you have to do npm remove Selenium Chrome for a Chrome driver, and then do an npm install. That will pull in the update.
You want to do an update?
You can do an update too, but I teach people to do a
To
remove
uninstall it, okay.
and then reinstall, just in case there's a file that might be left behind. Okay, so getting started with Java, install the JDK, install the IDE of your choice, create a new project, make sure you select a Maven project, enter group ID, enter a version, and most importantly, enable your Maven auto imports. Remember with Node, that package JSON, you do an npm install, pulls down everything. Well, when you add stuff additionally to Maven in a POM file, which I'll show you here, unless you enable auto import, it won't go out there and pull in the remote repos. So I'll give you a little detail on what Maven is. You can have a local repo, which is your own local machine. Central is a repo to your company, and remote is out in the cloud. This is a Maven structure, kind of looks similar to what we're doing. You have your source, you have your main. Main is where you put your common functions and your page objects. And then the test is where you put your test classes, your test methods. So our little challenge1.js, challenge2.js would go under the test. The palm.xml is where your is equal to your config.js or package.json. Package.json. Maven commands give you a whole entire list of the Maven commands, what they do. And adding supporting libraries here, everything goes in between the dependencies inside the POM. You can find more Maven libraries in Maven repository. Just do a search, it'll give you all the classes and functions you can add. So this is a basic description of what it looks like. So you just copy this, the add line to a project, you copy these 4 lines of code, paste it into your, in between the dependencies, and it'll auto import. Same thing with, this is to add the Selenium Java, this is to add the Selenium server, this is to add the Selenium Chrome driver and Firefox driver. You continue to add more. You have to add the test ng. Remember what we did was we did a npm install Mocha
Right.
and npm install Chai, and that pulled in the dependency there. Some people like to use Allure as a report generator. I'm not a big fan of it. It's good, but you're still looking at one test suite run compared to many. So what is test ng? I go into details about the test ng. Here's your features. With the annotation, parameterization, multiple threading. Here's an example of what the test parameters look like. So these are some of the exact parameters that we use. The environment tells our automation which environment we go against. So if we want to go against test, we can say test, and we'll switch our environments out. So the nice thing here with test ng is that we really don't modify our code, we're modifying our configuration to run a test. We do put our data file in here. So if we want to run it with a complete different set of data, we can run the same exact test with a different data set. Here on the browser, this is where we're controlling our which browser we're using. And this execution, this is our remote server. If we comment this line out, it'll run on a local box here. There's all your test annotations. There's a lot more with test ng compared to Node. You have before suite, before test, before groups, before class, and before method. So you can go different granularity on how you want to run your test. And at test itself is a test. So here's a basic structure of setting up your test. So here's all your befores and afters, and at the bottom, this looks similar to our pattern right here that we're developing. Okay, so we have at test. This one doesn't go to Google, verify Google title. So the difference between, a lot of people, they'll use Java main to run your code. What's the problem with using Java main? If you have 100 tests, how many Java mains do you have to have? Yeah, that's a little hard to maintain, because then you have to write one main to maintain 100 different other mains to kick off. 900 mains. That's what a nice thing about test ng is that if you do a dot start, it'll execute everything that has a test at test on it. So if you have, it doesn't matter which directory structure is under, and it'll look for everything underneath that, and with a dot start and the at test annotation, it'll follow the at before and after, clean up your stuff for you. You can also easily configure multi-threading. I'll show you where that multi-threading is a little bit later. But you can configure test suites, classes, and tests. Test ng tests are executed automatically when you build it. So when you configure Jenkins job, it'll automatically run it. And you can include dependencies. So if you have a test that depends on another test, You can specify that in your TestNG example as well. Data provider, you can specify your own data provider, or you can just call your own, just pass in your own Excel spreadsheet to grab your data. And here's your, by default, TestNG generates its own reports in an XML format. You can also use report.ng, PDF.ng report, and TestNG XSLT, all localized to the build. So this is how your browser interacts with your code. So your code is right here. Here's your browser driver. This is like the Chrome driver, and this is a browser. So it's going to pass everything through here and come back. The browser driver is what does the translation in the Webdriver Protocol. So when you do a driver.find element on your code, it knows how to translate that and drive it. So the common WebDriver functions, driver.get, we use that. Driver.getTitle, we use that. Driver.find element, find elements. Element.click, element.send keys, element.get page source, element.get text. This code is the exact same code we're using in Node, which is beautiful because you really don't have to learn a whole new language. You don't have to learn a new feature set. You don't have to do anything like that. Your element locators. There's a few more element locators inside Java than there are for Node. You have by link text, by partial link text, class name, by tag name, and by CSS selector. XPath. I didn't realize this, but XPath contains over 200 built-in functions. Yeah.
Nice.
So if you want to start tweaking with your XPath, this is why XPath is so powerful, but at the same time it's really rigid if you use direct path. So this is an absolute path right here, not going to fly. Relative path is a lot more flexible, but you also have axis. So you can do following, ancestor, child, preceding, following, sibling, parent, and descendant. You also have one other one called self. I haven't figured out why you would ever want to use self, but there is a way to use this self. So I'm guessing that's probably trying to maintain, so if you know where your locator is and you're looking for another locator to easily come back to yourself, you just do it .self. But this is why the XPath is so much more powerful than everything else that you have. Action builder. So this is the part we haven't got to for our automation stuff. An action builder will simulate your mouse clicks and your keyboard events. We kind of simulate keyboard events by typing, but you can also do more advanced to that. So you can do click and hold, context click,
Drag and click kind of stuff, right?
yeah, we can do left, right click, double click, drag and drop.
Yeah.
So your parameters are pretty easy. Your move by offset, here's your X and Y offset, drag and drop. The nice thing with the source is it always goes to the, when you do a find element, the find element goes to the center of that element. So it doesn't matter how big or how small that element is, it always goes to the center. If you want to move by the offset, it goes from that center off that coordinate.
That's important when, like for accessibility, right? Like if you're trying to figure out where your mouse hovers, or if you have to click right on top of text, or even maybe the whole button is live, right? But the person can only get within a vicinity, right, of that button. Does it still respond? Is that, yeah. Okay.
It is. I'll show you an example of where I use a click like that. So there's a few more parameters. Here's your action builder. So this is called action chain. This is where you would use it. So notice right here, I kind of broke it up into a dot. So here, for this whole entire series of actions, I'm going to say, move to this element, do a click, do a key down, do the shift key, because I'm going to use a capital, and then send keys hello. And then I'm going to do a key up, which is the shift key, and then double click on the user name text, and then do a context click, which is right click, and do a build. So there's a whole entire series of actions. And this action perform is when it actually performs the series of actions. So here you build all your actions here up, kind of queue it up, and then when you do perform, it performs that. So some of the tools that we use to locate, Firefox Debugger, Chrome Developer Tool for web. Assertions. We have soft assertions, hard assertions. goes into different conditions, what you want to, which assertions you want to use. Here's a soft assertion example. So soft assertion, these would generate fails, and if it does a fail, this one says hard assert would be a success. Here would be a fail, but it does not fill the whole entire steps. It actually will fill out right here at the end. So a soft assertion is similar to a verify, so it doesn't stop your script when it's used. Automating mobile applications. There's a bunch of tools you can use. But we're going to focus on Appium. The reason why we're using Appium, it's the Webdriver Protocol. It's the same language. The protocol is a language. So the driver.findElement, it still works. Driver.click, it's still the same thing. It does the exact same set of commands. You can use Appium for native apps, mobile web apps, and hybrid apps. Hybrid app meaning that the nice thing with the hybrid app is it actually takes your mobile app, sucks it down, and installs a little web server onto your mobile phone. And so it runs off that little mobile web server on your phone, it sucks in all the content, all the resources, and that's where you're executing. When you get to the point where you need to submit like a username or order or try to pull in something, that's what it actually calls out to something in the cloud. A native app is exactly what it is. It only resides on your native device. There could be network calls going out, but it's native to the app. It's not. The nice thing with hybrid apps is you can actually migrate from iOS to Android without recoding too much. We'll give you a little background on Appium and the philosophy. Here's a vendor provided frameworks. You can use XC UI test, UI Automator, UI Automator 2, instrumentation, Slendroid, and you can use WinApp-Driver. So these are your different drivers that you basically have. So if you remember that model of the 3 pictures, these would sit in the middle to translate all that control onto the devices. A little Appium concept of the client, and you can use all these libraries. I did add JavaScript. But all these extensions are Webdriver Protocol. Same common language. So you don't need to relearn a whole lot of stuff. So how hard is it to add an Appium to your project? Add this to your Palm. That's it. You add this to your Palm and you download if you're doing Android, make sure you download the Google SDK. Once you download the Google SDK, you enable debug on your mobile device, plug in the cord, and you're ready to go. This is how you do your desired capabilities. This is your local server that you're going to be running. So if you look at my machine right here, that's not it. Here's my local server. It's been running. This is similar to the Selenium server, but this is running Appium. And unfortunately, I forgot my cable tonight. Otherwise, I'll show you how it works on a mobile device too. Notice this code right here, error.findElement by name, error.findElement by ID, class name. This is one other extra feature that isn't available in just pure Selenium or WebDriver is a findElement by accessibility ID. Okay, so when you're testing for the blind, this is something that you can do. So how do you locate it? You can use a UI recorder. It's just a program called UX recorder or the UI Automator viewer that comes default with the Google SDK. I'll have to add a couple more pictures here. How about for desktop? So desktop, you have all these other programs, kind of subset of what we've previously seen, like RanRX, Visual Telerik, Test Complete. They do desktop, web, and web. But we're going to focus on Winium. Okay, and the reason why we use Winium is because it's the same language again. Once you understand WebDriver, your commands are exactly the same. How you get all the elements is exactly the same. What it returns to you is almost identical. Adding your Winium to the project, there's your dependency. Lines of code, you added it to there. And your Winium code looks similar to how we build our WebDriver. Other than right here where it says Winium driver and Winium service.builder. And we talked about the builder here. Here's your path, your executable. This would be like Notepad. So that's right up here. Locating desktop elements, you have to use inspect.exe. This is the easiest one to get from Microsoft. Just download it. It comes with a Microsoft SDK. I think just under a gig of download. And once you download it, it's available, so you can start looking at the elements. I got to add a couple more pictures of what it looks like. All right, let's talk about Jenkins. So in Jenkins, it's a build server. Mainly it's doomed for builds, but it's great for CI. You can kick it off anytime you want to. You can kick off the builds. You can build, create projects. So you create a new project. Here's what it looks like on the screen. A little small. I need to increase that size. I'll figure it out now. And to configure your source, that is a small picture too.
Yeah, can you zoom in on the slide itself instead of like minimize all that blue background, or is that part of the slide?
Let's see.
Yeah, right.
There's a button at the very bottom over towards the plus minus. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Yeah, that's bigger.
That's a little bigger. That's what it looks like to configure your code. And choose Subversion, choose Git, whatever you want to. Build checkers. This is where you can say, well, based on this certain action, I want to kick off. If you want to kick it off based on time, you can. Here your build environment, if you want to say, show my progress. This is the part where a lot of people get stuck. So with Maven, it's actually multi-steps. So with Maven, you do a Maven install that packages up everything that was built. And what you do here is that when you do Maven install, when it packages up everything and builds it, it also kicks off your tests. Anything that's in a test ng, it's going to kick off. Well, here I want to do a test skip true. And then for the next one, I'm going to do a Maven test, and I create this custom configuration called dread suite file, and I pass it the XML file that I want to execute. So the XML file is my suite that I want to focus on. So I can have 30, 50, 100 different suite files that says this suite includes all these tests with this set of data. So now I can target which set of tests I want to run. This is all you need to add to your POM file. So you have your default one, which is a test ng. If you want to have a set of smoke tests, you can run a smoke test.xml. If you want to just override everything, just these parameters right here with the red suite file, smoked file, and test suite file, this is where you override those that config. Okay. I'll show you the demo. Here's a demo of a custom reporting app, and I'll show you the live version. Hold it up. And to run,
Which app is that?
it's a custom built one. I built it.
Oh, cool.
So to run parallel tests in testng, you just configure this thread count, and you can parallel based on tests. So each individual test will utilize its own. You'll probably want to use a Selenium server with a bunch of nodes attached to it, because ideally you can only handle between 5 to 10 threads at the same time per workstation. And you can use remote. You have to use a remote WebDriver instead of like a Chrome driver or a Java driver. So how do you configure your Selenium server? That's how you kick off your hub. Let's say on port 444, and that's how you kick off your node. Okay, and there'll be 10 sessions available. You have to change your code a little bit. But this is what we did. We did the RM, remember that? We did the RM, and that's what this one here is. Remote WebDriver passing a path right here. So it's a little bit more different than what we did, but this is the remote WebDriver. You can do more parallelization. This Lambda Selenium, this is actually a really interesting conference talk that they did. So they're using AWS Lambdas. Each Lambda can kick off one test. And you can spin up 1,000 Lambdas at the same time. So you can run 1,000 tests at the same time.
Are they headless or?
Both. You can do headless and you can do full browser. Full browser costs you more money. Headless costs you less money. But they do it all powerful. I gotta change some of that. A little ROI. There's your credits. So let me show you. Let's go back to the reporting now. This is that reporting app that I was talking about. Let's load the VPN. Well, that's one. Let me show you the drag and drop with the action builders. So here's our common classes, here's our functional classes, our page objects, here's our tests.
I got a question, Matt.
Yeah.
I've seen POM to denote the page object model and also project object model. So what is the difference between the two? Is it the same acronym or not?
It's the same acronym.
It doesn't mean the same thing though.
No, it does not.
So what is the difference then? I mean, so I saw project object model in your presentation. You're just talking about how you would work within the project that you're.
So this right here, this POM file, this is only for Maven. Maven has to have a project object or a project, what's it called?
Project object model, yeah.
Project object model, because this is your blueprint for your project. The page object model is more for a WebDriver, how you design your functionality.
So are project object models characteristic to Maven or other?
Only Maven.
Okay, all right,
Only Maven.
just checking.
Okay. Let's see this guy. Here's the test results. So right now we capture 6,034 test results since about 2 months ago. That's something to automate a test we run. So every test actually reports into this application. We can do filters. We can do pass. We can do tests that ran today. If you want to see all the tests that ran today. And we can also see the failures too. So there's the benefits of having a custom reporting versus a default report, which means that you're just loading the web page. You look at it, shut it down. Next time you run the suite, you got to run, go back to it, look at it again, shut it down. Today we only had one test pass. Because we were actually upgrading our servers and didn't have a whole lot to do. Let me show you this, and then we can take off. This will be part of my demo. And let's see, show off that. Let's do 5 threads here. That's all my laptop can handle. So notice that each line right here is a different test for each individual market of the globe. And notice how slow and awesome Java is. And because it is multi-threaded, it takes a little time to kick off. And here we go. Here's the action. There we go. I generated 5 different browsers. I don't have full screen yet. So there we are. this out here, you'll watch this screen here, it'll start clicking these commands, and there will be a couple drag and drops. And all this data that's being run on this test is from a randomly generated Excel file I have. And with a randomly generated Excel file, I know the values that I get after I run my test is going to be different. So here you can see the drag and drop. So this is actually calculating a sun lotion, a customized lotion to what your needs are for you. So if you're out in the sun for 8 hours a day, we include more sunblock inside the lotion. If your skin's really gets irritated easily, there's certain chemicals that are less in the lotion. But this is how the multi-threading works. And if you don't use it right, if you use the wrong framework, your drag and drops are not multi-threaded. Yeah, so only the very top one is drag and drop, but this is the way that I built this automation. It's completely threaded to that one single thread. That took a while to figure out too. The other thing that's nice is because it's a PhoneGap app, this whole entire website, it gets sucked down and installed onto a mobile device. So the same automation I wrote for this will work for my mobile device too. All I do is just trigger a different WebDriver. So here it generates a custom code. You'll notice that one says AB73. This one says YF28. So this is what I validated against. And if I'm running on a remote web server, the remote slave servers, it takes about 4 minutes to run all my tests. And we don't have to continue. So.
What editor is that, or what?
This one?
Yeah, what are you working on?
IntelliJ.
IntelliJ?
I recognize it. It's
Yeah.
parody.
You can use Eclipse too. Eclipse, the thing that I don't like about Eclipse is you have to add your own custom plugins. Whereas IntelliJ, they just give you most of the plugins that you would normally use. You don't worry about custom configuration.
I tried Eclipse when I was first working with Java here and there, and I feel like it was just a lot clunkier than IntelliJ.
Yeah, it is a lot funkier. Anyway, that's my presentation in a 30-minute.
We should clap.
But I did find a couple bugs I got to go through and fix.
You share those slides? I knew the word would come to me somehow.
These slides?
Yeah.
After my presentation.
No, yeah.
I think on a delivery note, I really liked that you kept coming back to here's the dependency code. And for every new thing, it was just like this little tiny chunk, which sort of drives home your point, right? Yeah, I really enjoyed the, and here we go. I think it's going to be complicated. Here's 6 lines of code.
The one thing that I don't want people to do is find 4 different technologies that have nothing in common to do 4 different things. Because then you're going to have to hire 4 people to maintain. If you do the bus test, well, then you have to hire 8 people. What if they get hit, if they're in the hospital, if they're on vacation? 8 people. So that increases your cost. Whereas this one here, you can have one guy who understands how to write WebDriver automation, and he can transition into all the different platforms. Makes it nice. So
What's the bus test?
the bus test is if I get hit by the bus, what's the next? What's the backup plan?
So you always have to have a bus plan.
Wait, so who's administering the bus test, and what should I know about it going into the second round of these interviews?
Make sure you're in a crosswalk and you'll be fine.
Oh, my job is just not to get hit?
Well, also document your processes so that if someone new had to come in, they could read what you have and they have an understanding of what to do.
Or increase your value by not documenting and being the only one who knows how to do
You know,
And then if you're hit by a bus, then the company
that's
hates
one
you.
way to.
You'll
You'll be dead though, like nobody, yeah.
Yeah, but your children and
Yes.
dog.
I don't have
At the
children.
funeral.
I have neither of them.
It could just be seriously named. There might be friends.
Seriously.
Jason,
Yeah,
for my sake.
I would, you can always call it.
From my experience, managers